Torah tells us regarding the birth of a male. When a woman conceives, she gives birth to a male. The Torah tells us she's contaminated for 7 days. And on the 8th day, we didn't read this yet, the child should be circumcised. Now, we'd spoken that who is the center of the universe? When God created the human being, is it the male or the female? If you read just the simple narrative, God created Adam. And then the Torah tells us it is not good for man to be alone. He created Chava, the woman, as a helpmate. So she herself is created to allow Adam to achieve his level of perfection. In terms of the value of her accomplishment, she's no less deserving than him, because without her, he cannot achieve his perfection. So in terms of partnership, she's an equal partner. But in terms of the responsibility and the initiative, who's the one who has to set the initiative and the perspective? That is the husband. The wife is there to assist the husband to achieve that objective. That's the simple narrative. So if the wife is there to assist the husband, then she's meeting her value, which is for that reason. We'd mentioned that a woman has no obligation of Talmud Torah. A woman has many time-oriented mitzvahs, like the Kriya Shema, the Sukkah, the Lulav. A woman has no obligation. Those positive commandments, something which is dictated by time. If a woman would have the identical obligation as a man, what would she be preoccupied with? Achieving her own level of perfection. We discussed this the other day. Therefore, the woman does not have the obligation to study Torah on a continuous basis as a man. A woman only has to know the laws which pertain to her to be able to observe them properly. But in terms of studying the law, studying the Torah for the sake of studying, the woman has no obligation. There's a concept known as mitzvah and there's hechsher mitzvah. When you go to purchase the 4 species, what is that? That's to enable you to perform the mitzvah. You buy the garment with 4 corners and you put tzitzis on it. That is a hechsher mitzvah. That's to enable you that when you have the garment, you put it on, you'll be able to fill the mitzvah of tzitzis. The woman studying her laws, there's no mitzvah to study. She's only studying the laws to enable her to be proficient in the laws, to be able to observe them properly. But there's no mitzvah per se for the woman to study Torah. A man, on the other hand, has an obligation not only to observe the mitzvahs, and he has to study, because without studying, you cannot observe properly, but in addition, it's to study continuously, because the depth and the breadth of Torah is unending, therefore always to engage in the process of studying Torah. That's the man's obligation. The woman doesn't have that obligation. This is yom v'loylo. A man unceasingly has to be involved in that process. A woman does not. Once she knows her laws, she doesn't have to study. She only has to study once in a while to review that she should not forget and know to observe as she's supposed to observe. But again, if the objective of the woman is to be the helpmate, to assist the male in his objective, that he should not be distracted and he should be focused on what that is, the Torah doesn't encumber the woman with that obligation. So again, what is the objective? The objective is the man perfecting himself. The woman was created to assist the male to achieve that level of perfection. But again, reward-wise, she's equal in terms of that. Not only that, we speak about the zivug. It says, 40 days before a child is conceived, there's a bas kol that comes out from Sinai, bas ploni leploni. Bas ploni leploni. It doesn't say plonis leploni. It says the daughter of so-and-so to so-and-so. The male in that bas kol, that heavenly voice, the male is identified. The woman is not identified by name. The woman is bas ploni, the daughter of so-and-so to so-and-so. The Gemara tells us in Brachos, which we had, which the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh speaks about, that what is a name? What lies in the name? What lies in the name is the destiny of a person. That's what lies in the name. For instance, Rus, who's the grandmother of David HaMelech, why was her name Rus? So the Gemara tells us, Shemirava, because she was destined to have a grandchild who'll be Mirave HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Shivas Tishbachos, who would say God with song and praise. She would merit to have such a grandchild. That's Rus. Mirave means to sate, to satisfy. Hashem. That's Rus. So and the Gemara tells us, therefore, in a name, the destiny of a person's life lies in the name. And the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh says the only area which is the equivalent of almost prophecy, that Hashem puts the name of a child. When parents come up with a name, it's put in their mind by God that name is associated with that child to identify and establish the destiny of that child. And that's the reason why, if there's a male, we don't reveal the name until the bris, until after the child's circumcised. Of course, the parents who have to discuss it, but it's not public. Why? Because since the orlo, the child before circumcised, that foreskin represents the chet of Adam Rishon, that's the evil. That's the expression of the evil of the tree of knowledge. We don't want that name, which is the destiny, which is the spiritual destiny of that child, to have any association to that representation of evil, which is the foreskin. So therefore, the first one becomes aware, others become aware of that name, is only after the child is circumcised. That's when the parent gives the name. That's when the child is named for that reason. So therefore, but again, what is the object? A girl, you could reveal the name before, because a girl doesn't have circumcision. So that evil, the representative of evil, is not in the woman. But again, it manifests itself in the male. Now, the Baal HaTurim says something over here very interesting. What is the gematria over here? It says the Yolda Zocher. What other word is the equivalent of Zocher? The gematria Brocha. Zocher and Brocha. Male, Zocher and Brocha of the exact same numerical value. It's the Baal HaTurim. Now, why is that? Because if you merit to have a son, the male is the prominent or the predominant representation of the human being. The woman is secondary. She doesn't have her own identity, and that's what I'm saying. It's bas ploni l'ploni. What is the identification of a woman? The identification of a woman, who she marries. Who she marries. Because who she marries, that identifies who she is. Her destiny lies in her ability to assist whoever her mate is, her soulmate, that's why a wife is called a soulmate, to achieve that perfection. That perfection is her perfection. And therefore, the Gemara tells us, when a man takes a woman does not take a man. The Gemara tells us in Kedushin that if a woman says to a man, I am marrying you, it's not a valid marriage. Torah says, Kikach ish isha. A man must take the wife. And the Gemara says it's like the husband finding something that's lost. You're coming upon something lost, because where was Chava created from? When Chava, after she was created and Adam named her, what did she say? Etze me'atzomai bosem mipsori. You are a bone of my bone, and you're the flesh of my flesh. He recognized that she was part of himself, because originally what was Chava? Chava was an appendage attached to Adam, and it says a deep sleep came upon him, and Hashem removed that and created the wife. And the whole concept is, it's very interesting. It says, Lov tov adam lios levado. It says v'dovak b'ishto v'hoyu lebasa echad. When a man will cleave to his wife, they'll become one flesh. What does that mean? So Rashi cites Chazal. It always goes back to the one, because the husband and wife jointly they produce the child. So it's two, but the two always goes back to one, because jointly they create another human being. So it's always two, one, and then the one becomes two again, and the two create one. So you're always going back to the one, which Adam originally was one, because the wife and the man, they're one entity. So in what context do they become one entity? By sharing the child together. Because the father, it says, the Gemara tells us in Kedushin, there are three partners in every human being. The father, the mother, and Hashem. God provides the soul, and the father and mother, they provide different aspects of the physicality of the child. So that's the idea. So what is Zohar? The gematria, the numerical value of Zohar is brocha. The male is the brocha, because the male is the dominant figure on the scene, because the responsibility of achieving perfection, that responsibility lies on the male. The wife is there to assist him. But so again, it's bas ploni leploni. It's the daughter of so and so. She doesn't have her own identity. Her identity is to become part of her husband to achieve his level of perfection. And it's very interesting. Of course, a female has a name, but within the context of marriage, what is a woman? There's Mr. and Mrs. What is the surname? The surname is what? So it's not, it's a male-dominated society. No, the wife, when she marries the husband, she assumes the identity of what? Of the husband. Why within marriage there's an exclusivity? There's an exclusivity because the wife, her identity is her husband. So if her identity is specifically for this man, she can't become part of another identity for that reason. That is her value. Her value is to become part of that. That is her objective, is that objective. Therefore, the baskol that comes out of Sinai is bas ploni liploni, the daughter of so-and-so. That's the pedigree to so-and-so. When we speak about pedigree in the Torah, pedigree is always the paternal line, not the paternal line, right? We speak about the 12 tribes. Because the women, they don't have that, their identity is their objective to achieve that, to be the helpmate for whoever that destined husband is to achieve his level of perfection for that reason. Many years ago, I was giving a class, women's class, and one of the women says, in Lakewood, you have these Kolo wives. The husbands, they turn them into slaves. They're a mother, they have children. They assume a job because the husband is studying, so they have to earn some income. Because the stipend that they get from the yeshiva, the husband's, is definitely not enough to make ends meet. And sometimes the wife has to have two jobs. In addition, she has to keep house. They turn them into slaves. This is what she says. This woman made this comment. So I said to her, I want to ask you a question. A woman marries a man and her husband wants to become a neurosurgeon. And to go from begin medicals to become a neurosurgeon, I'm not sure, I think it's about a 16-year program, till he becomes the full neurosurgeon. It's the wife, she goes, and she has to delay having children for a while. Fine, she has a family, she has to eventually have, let's say, halfway through this process, and she has to earn because the stipend he gets from the hospital is not definitely enough, and he has to be assistants and this and that. She keeps house because he's busy doing his thing. Turned his wife into a slave because he wants to achieve that level of expertise in medicine. Do you see her as a slave? Say that woman, I really respect that woman because look at her level of contribution. Ultimately, she's going to produce a husband that he should become that neurosurgeon. There you don't see her turning into a slave. But the Jew who's created, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, Bishul Torah Shenikus Reishis and Yisro Shenikus Reishis. The objective is to study Torah, to bring the world to perfection and the person to perfection, which is only through Torah mitzvahs. That's turning him into a slave. That's going into the salt mines, into the coal mines. In one situation, she's a heroine. She's to be revered. And the husband and her contribution is phenomenal. The other, you see what? You put her into shackles and turn her into a slave. Zocher. Zocher is B'gematria Brocha. The man has all the mitzvos. Torah, mitzvahs Shishman Grama, time oriented mitzvahs, he's bound by everything. She's there to assist him, therefore she has no obligation to study. She has no obligation, this Davud Jaham says, therefore time oriented mitzvahs which have to be done during a specific time, she can't be bound by that because she has to be free to be available for other things. Therefore the Torah doesn't bind her in time oriented mitzvahs which are limited to specific times for that reason.
Rabbi?
Yes.